Hi everyone, this is Tracy Chen. Ever since the new financial year has started, we have been talking about all the different nomination requirements to receive an invitation for a 491 or 190 in any state in Australia. And in today's video, we're going to talk about Canberra. So yes, the Australian Capital Territory. So you can be nominated for the 491 or 190 visa by the state government of the Australian Capital Territory. Now, each state has their different systems and processes and criteria. Now, before we jump into the nomination criteria, for those of you who don't know me, I'm an immigration lawyer based in Australia. I'm the CEO and principal lawyer at Mason Chen Law Group. If you want to get in contact with myself or one of our fantastic lawyers or agents, our contact details are below. You just submit a query and one of our friendly representatives will get back to you shortly. For today's video, we will just focus on the 190 visa in the Australian Capital Territory if you are an onshore applicant. Now, the absolute basic eligibility criteria is that you must have an eligible occupation, a valid skills assessment in that eligible occupation. You must be under the age of 45 at the time of invitation, and you must score at least competent English. Now, that's the basic eligibility criteria to even be eligible to lodge an expression of interest by the Department of Home Affairs. Once you're able to lodge one of them, then you must meet the nomination criteria by the Australian Capital Territory to even be eligible. So let's have a look. So next, to identify if you are eligible, you'll need to meet one of the following. So your occupation must be on the ACT critical skills list, or you're the primary holder of a 457 or a 482 visa sponsored by an ACT employer. Now, you must have been working for the past 3 months. If you fall under this, it means you don't have to have an occupation on the ACT critical skills list. Or the third option is that you're a majority owner of an eligible registered business in the ACT, and you're going to claim matrix points in the small business category. So again, if this is the case, then you don't need to have an eligible occupation on the ACT critical skill list. You must have lived in Canberra for the past 6 months at the date of your invitation. To prove this, you'll need to provide bank statements for the past 6 months showing that you've been spending money in Canberra or in a suburb that's within 30 minutes of the ACT. You must have worked for at least the last 26 weeks in Canberra. You can work for more than one employer or be a small business owner, or you're self-employed. There's specific criteria for that employment. So it must be a minimum of 30 hours per week in at least 26 of the 30 weeks before you make your submission, and you need to provide evidence of this. You'll need to work in a genuine position. So it needs to be a real job. Believe it or not, there have been people that create jobs, create companies, and then employ people so that they can meet this criteria. No good. Your employer would need to provide a statutory declaration confirming that you work in that position. Now, this last one's a little bit tricky. If you're working for an interstate employer, you'll need to prove why you are based in Canberra. So you can't be just working online and just living in Canberra trying to meet this requirement. Maybe your employer is a big employer in Sydney and you are stationed in Canberra to work on a project and you take instructions from people in Canberra. Just an example there. Now, if you're going under the small business owner category, you'll need to be able to claim your matrix points, and you'll need to sign a statutory declaration confirming everything that you do within your business and providing all your business information. You'll need to have at least proficient or superior English unless you are a chef. And when you look at the matrix points, which we'll go through in a minute, if you're claiming points for your spouse, you'll need to provide strong evidence that you are in a genuine and continuing relationship. Let's go through the matrix now. So how it works in Canberra is that you must first submit an expression of interest, and then you must submit a Canberra matrix form. Now, the matrix form is completely different to the expression of interest, and what you score in your expression of interest is probably less important, and they care more about what you score on the Canberra matrix. When you have a look at the recent invitations and the scores there, that refers to the Canberra matrix points. Now, we will be using the same matrix table when we're we're looking at the 491 visa as well for onshore. There's a separate matrix table for offshore applicants. So the first question on the matrix is how long you've been living in ACT. So I know that I previously mentioned that the minimum requirement is 6 months, but at the end of the day, you need to meet the cutoff for an invitation. So you need to have higher points. So just because you meet the nomination criteria doesn't necessarily mean you will be invited. You also have to have the top application out of all the applicants. So the longer you've been living in the ACT, the more likely you'll probably get an invitation because you'll have more points. The second is English language proficiency. So if you have superior or proficient. If you have a spouse, you can claim points for their English language proficiency. If you don't have a spouse, you won't be gaining any points for this. Next is the nominated occupation, if it's on the ACT critical skills list or not. The next one is for small business owners. So depending on where your business is at, how much is turning over, you'll be able to claim points for that. Next is the length of ACT employment. So again, I know I said the minimum requirement was the 26 weeks out of the last 30 weeks. However, again, the longer you've been working, the more points you're going to get. They also look at your skill level of employment. So if you're working in your nominated occupation, then great. Otherwise, if you're not working in your nominated occupation, you can get some points depending on the skill level of the job. You can also claim points for your spouse's employment, depending on their skill level and what they're doing. There's some minimum requirements here for that work experience, so be sure to check that out. You also get points for the level of your tertiary education, and you also get extra points if you studied in an ACT tertiary institution. So of course, at this stage, people who actually graduated from the ACT are going to get more points. You can also score some points if you have close family ties in the ACT and assets in the ACT. So the maximum points that you can score is 195, which is huge. Like, I don't know anyone that's close to that. However, looking at the recent invitations, it is competitive, and that's mainly because of the allocations this financial year. Hopefully next financial year we'll get more allocations. But if you look at some of the occupations, it is ridiculous. So for example, accountant. In one of the previous invitation rounds, I think the cutoff for the matrix was like 120. But looking at the current round, there was only invitations for 491. So for accountants, it was 115. The other occupations are okay though, like some of them are 65. It's all right, it's not too bad. I think 60, 65 is achievable on the matrix points. So Canberra is a lot more complicated than people think. If you look at the refusal rate, is actually quite high for the nomination applications. So it sits around the 15 to 20% mark, which is extremely high. So it's super important that you get the right legal and migration advice before submitting an application. Anyways, I hope that video was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video with people who need it. If you have any questions, just drop it in the comments below and I'll do my best to make videos in regards to them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.